Mm-mm-mm. Yes, it is a mess behind me. I do care. I was about to say I don't care, but I do care. I just, right now, it's not my concern. Thank you for letting me know that I'm live. That's very good. Um, so, production wise, what's been going on? It's mainly getting this arrangement to work in my favor. That's the main thing. So, I've redone the vocal and the guitar bit in general, as you can see. And it's now actually in time with the drums. Now, in the last video, I mentioned that I wanted to make. In the last video, I said I wanted to make the. I wanted to make the vocal line a bit, and the music in general, a bit more authentic by making it go in its own tempo, kind of. And instead of going on the metronome, I just go on my own tempo, essentially. But it turned out to be very, very awkward to create the drum bits. And I'm not a drummer, and although I do want to learn a bit more about how to get these drums going, it's going to be very quiet. But I just realised it's going to be very quiet for you, isn't it? We'll find out how to fix that in a bit, but yeah, I'm learning. I'd like to learn more about how to get these drums going. These are not what the cymbals were meant to be. If I do that, there we go. What's it say? I can't do drums. Oh. Anyway, yeah, I can't do drums for shit, as you can see. So generally what I like to do is I like to take a sample and then I manipulate that sample in my favor. That's generally how I go about doing my drums at the moment. So yeah, at this point I'm gonna stick with the timing of the. I'm gonna stick with the quantized time, I guess you could say. I'm gonna stick in the tempo. That's what I meant to say. I'm gonna stick with the tempo for now, but I'm still tempted on the idea of expanding the audio so that it works in my favor. I apologize, it's 11:30, so I'm very, very tired. I'm looking at expanding the audio a bit more into, you know, making it work for my own tempo, but I can't make it work at the moment. And at this point, I really want to just make a song and complete it and release it. And then I want to move on to another song and start experimenting with all that stuff from there. So I hope that makes sense. Basically, I just, as much as I would love to start experimenting with all these other little things, since I'm a little rusty on getting, I have a song, I'm not rusty on necessarily making songs, but I kind of forget that the production side is just as much part of the songwriting process as, at least for me, as sitting down on the guitar and playing it. There's a big difference between sitting down on the guitar and playing it and then adding in the bass and adding in the drums. That's all part of songwriting as well, and I kind of neglect that. Not because I should, but that's just what I do. And then I forget, like, okay, yeah, to actually add all the production and flair and all of that, it's not all technical here, you know. We're still arting even here. And it's funny because I forget that, because I sometimes get a bit intimidated to do the production part, because it's like, well, there's a lot to it, and a lot of technical stuff to it, but I forget that it's still creating, we're still creating stuff here. So I'm gonna play through what I have on here so far. It's not balanced or anything like that. We should really rename these: guitar left, guitar right. So generally I like to, and then this guitar, I guess lead technically, but random solos. And then this is the bass. I'm gonna make this red. Bass. So I like to color code my stuff. Bass, attempt 1. So these aren't really, I've literally just recorded these now over the past hour or so. Guitar, random solo 1. I'm just gonna call it that for now. Guitar right 1. Guitar left 1. Vocal demo acoustic. Vocal demo. So this is like my vocal demo, right? So this is just a take of the vocals on the acoustic. I don't actually know. Yeah, you can hear me. Okay, good. So this is a take on that vocal, and then I've got a guitar left and right, and this is just to add a bit of, when you double a guitar or anything really, it just makes it sound more loud and more better. Probably because any mistakes that you made on one track, it kind of makes up for it on the other track. But I think I need to think about this, because the more instruments you add, the louder it gets, and it gets to a point where sounds start getting in the way of each other and it doesn't sound too great. You can make up for that with using a lot of EQ, but of course if you start using so much EQ, it kind of becomes a bit unnatural. So there's only so much space that you really get in a track. It's like a, I was about to say it's like an orchestra, but it's not even, it's kind of like an orchestra, but everyone's playing with the same instrument, right? There's only so much room that you can actually add to a track. But as a result, this is going to sound a bit messy, but hey, that's just how it goes. And then we've got the bass attempt. I'm not much for a bassist, so the bass is very basic for now. It might get better as we go along, but the big thing about the bass is that my bass is very, very old. It's my dad's bass that he gave to me, and he got that bass, I think, for like 90 quid in the 90s. So it's a very old bass. And as much as I love it, I'm thinking of buying a new bass for this stuff, because it was already breaking a little bit when recording this. You can see how quiet it is compared to the guitar, for example. I don't know if this is just the nature of recording bass in general, because it sounded loud when I was playing it this time round, but yeah, it doesn't record cleanly. It sounds a bit muddy. I don't know, it doesn't sound too bad. And then I put, by the way, all these guitars and whatnot, I'm putting it through a plugin called Amplitude 5, which is basically a is a guitar plugin, and it's one of the first plugins that I got when I really got into making the music and whatnot, because I really like I kind of understand guitar gear and this makes it a lot simpler for me, so I can kind of just go in here and mess around with these knobs and whatnot. But that being said, this is just quickly putting stuff together, and I'm using one of the presets called 60 Solo. A lot of these I don't really mind using the presets, it's just sometimes you want to tweak the sound a little bit extra after the fact. In this case I'm not done it yet, but we will probably get into that. And then Superior Drummer, so I'm just using a drum loop. Before I used Battery, but in this case I'm just using the Superior Drummer. This is probably the main drums that we're going to use, but we are probably going to change the kit, and we're most definitely going to change the drum loop, because if you listen now, it's a very basic beat. It's just so I could follow along when playing on my vocal line. But yeah, we're having something a bit better than that. It's Jesus. It's my favorite drum loop because it's so basic and it's so easy to follow. But anyway, let's play this and then I'm gonna go to bed. Okay, so yeah. I grow them in my bedroom. I let the greenery surround me. Don't know how long to let them grow until I cut the stem. Begin again, yeah. Waiting for a time, oh veteran to be mine. Waiting inside. You can already hear how it's already really crowded. Now that could be probably solved by adding a bit of EQ to the bass. It could probably be solved by lowering the amount of guitars. And EQing the guitars as well. One day of course the vocals need to be louder as well, much louder, but of course it's playing over the acoustic. One day you'll feel like mine. Don't know why I did that. You can already kind of get the idea that, well, you know, there's pretty much a song here. Like, yeah, not saying it's really in a condition to be released, but you can kind of see how you've already might need to rearrange some of the stuff, and I would probably want to have a solo vocal line so that I can actually put that in there. I also want to add a bit more in terms of harmonics. Harmonics, is that the word I'm looking for? Harmonies, different polyphonic harmonies. Maybe that's the technical term. I want to add other vocal lines on top so that it builds up a bit more and has a bit more oomph to it. But it's on its own without any effects really outside of the basic preset effects. It's pretty much already pretty nicely sounding. I would say. I wouldn't say this is a an audio masterpiece, but I don't care for having super high quality everything. I just like to have something that sounds really cool. And this sounds pretty decent. Now, this particular song, I don't want it to be... How do I put this? I don't want this particular song to be a huge burden on me, if that makes sense. I want to kind of make something that sounds quite nice. I can release it, and then we can really start going along with production and making something that is, how do I put this, like very technically good, if that makes sense. I wouldn't mind making something that really challenges me to make something that sounds really, really cool. You know, if I was able to make something that sounds as good as Michael Jackson's Smooth Criminal, you know, that would be awesome. It's about getting there though, you know, it's about that step-by-step process. So anyway, you might see, oh no, this EQ is not being used. I put this EQ earlier because I was like, you can't even hear the vocal at this point. You can see how an overcrowded song, can really get in the way. You can see there's stuff like that you can do, where you essentially just completely blast out the mid-range. Now, I haven't really messed around with this all that much, because although I did a lot of random EQing stuff, I didn't really know what I was doing on my first album, and I, in the end, just went, that seems good, I'll craft it like this, and nowadays I realise that EQing is really an art of removing sound, and it can be shaping sound as well, but really it's the art of removing sound so that it gets out of the way of other things. So you can hear now that the bass isn't as in the way of the guitar as it is now. So I'm going to go here. So, and then again with the EQ, and you're going to hear a difference, and it probably will sound worse, but it's out of the way of the other instruments. Oh, it's in the way of the other instruments now. So, okay, wait a minute. Okay, this is without, okay. Wait a sec, let's just loop this. And then if you listen to the guitar as well. You can hear the guitar a lot more distinctly when you add the EQ, while the bass, although it's more out the way, it's more out the way, so you don't have to worry about it as much. As a result of all of this though, the bass is more at the front and the guitar is actually more in the background. It's more like a vocal artist in the background, which I actually kind of like, you know? I don't actually mind the idea of bass being in the front. That's the other thing I kind of learnt recently, is the fact that really music is a 3D space, which I kind of already knew, but it's really hard to remember that this is the case. But whatever's going to be louder, if there's a thing that's louder, it's going to be more at the front, and if it's more quiet, then if it's more in the back, then it's going to be more quiet. So loud things at the front, quiet things are going to be more at the back. But I never really even thought them as 3D space things. These drums are going to need to be worked on as well, because this is just playing on its own little world, which is fine. So we've got the bleed levels and all of that stuff. This is really cool. This program is really, really awesome. But what's important is that this is probably going to get exported. Either exported, or I think there's a way that you can record these and output them into different buses. I actually don't know a whole lot about buses, to be honest with you, but apparently you can output them into different ones of these, right? Different audio tracks. And then you can, from there, position these in left and right, vary the sound, so you can put them wherever you want in the landscape, and then EQ them as well outside of this program, which this program's great for all of that stuff. You know, you can literally go in here. You can't, as far as I know, you can pan them left and right. Or maybe you can just do it all on here. Oh, maybe you could just do it on here then. How can I set this? But you can do this bleeding stuff as well, so enable bleed. So you can actually start hearing the rest of the drums on there. And this has bleed already. Always liked doing ones where it's just one microphone. So it would be like this. And it has this kind of, I don't know, like it sounds like you actually are recording it in a crappy garage, you know? Especially when you overexpose it as well like that. But then you could just distort it as well. Of course, these presets are also drum presets, so we should really mess around with this as well. Tape delay was always fun as well. Add reverse effects as well. Q84? I don't know what that means. Yeah, anyway, sorry, I got really drawn into that. sorry, I can get really drawn into messing around with the controls. I mean, that's why I enjoy doing it. So yes, that's how it sounds like for now. This is not a... Oh god, what's the time? Oh god, it's almost midnight. Okay, this is not a finished product, obviously, by any means. I don't even think I'm going to be using any of these takes in particular, but it's the foundation. So next time, in theory, I should be tweaking these around, making them work the way that I want them to work. The biggest idea is that we take a sound, we take a portion of it and go, okay, is this verse the length I want it to be? Do I want to make it so that... So we get to this bit. So we get to this point. One day you'll feel like mine. Oh, okay. Oh, that's the second take. Okay, not second take. After the second verse. But the point is, do we want it to be? Do we want to say the one day it'll feel like mine once? Do we want to say it twice? Do we want to just, repeat it over and over again? Do we want to have that part? This part at the end as well, it goes on a little long. So I have this bit at the end. Do we want that to go on forever? How do we want to work that? So as soon as we understand what the structure is going to be, then we can keep growing from there. That's basically the idea. Personally, I'm not a big fan of the idea of doing multiple takes of the same thing. This is why it's one long take. Generally, if I mess up, I just consider that part of the song, but that's the way I like it. It makes it sound a bit more authentic. But we might tweak it. We might say, no, we need to do multiple takes. Not multiple takes. We might need to do it so that it's perfect, and then we use that over and over again. The only issue that I've always had with that is that it sounds a lot more robotic, and it's already sounding a bit robotic by keeping in time. At some point, I want to remove that aspect. I don't want to be locked to a grid anymore. So we'll look into that in future songs, but for now, this song is going to be locked to the grid. Maybe we'll come back to it in the future, and then we'll go, yep, we're not locking it to the grid anymore because we've learned all these new things. So yeah, we'll get to that when we get to that. But for now, I'm going to save